Hello, everybody. This is JT Productions, and welcome back to another game deep dive for the 2024 season. Today, by request from Benjamin Williams, 1719, I will be doing the Iron Bowl. So, first off, a little backstory. The Iron Bowl, if you didn't know, was between the Alabama Crimson Tide and the Auburn Tigers. It's probably the uh, top two of the best rivalries in college football. Uh, if you've ever seen a clip of the kick six, where Auburn brought a kick back after Alabama missed the field goal, um, if you ever seen the cam back, yeah, part of this rivalry. I'm sure you figured that out. But um, recent memory, Alabama has dominated this rivalry, but Auburn has still kept it close after the firing of Gus Malzahn in 2020. Gus Malzahn was Auburn's most recent head coach that had the best luck against Nick Saban in Alabama before Nick Saban retired. He beat Alabama three times, 2013, 17, and 19. And anytime the game was in Auburn, it was always a close game, a majority of the time. Now, ever since the Brian Harsin experiment did not work out, Hugh Freeze, former Ole Miss head coach that also beat Nick Saban in Alabama twice, comes in from Liberty to be the head coach of Auburn. Last season was his first season, and you saw the results, almost beating Georgia and Alabama in the same season, um, and still making a bowl game where they got blown out by Maryland. Also, they lost to New Mexico State, but we'll move on from that. Um, Alabama, on the other hand, they went to the playoff last year where they lost to Michigan, but they won the SEC, going undefeated in SEC play. Only two losses were to Texas and Michigan. Um, Alabama, however, they lost Nick Saban. Nick Saban retired from college football early, I believe, in January, and ever since Alabama has been clamoring to get all their ducks in a row. First thing they did was they hired former Washington head coach Kalen DeBoer, who brought Washington to the national championship last year. This was a good pickup for Alabama, but we'll see how if there's a step down from Nick Saban, which it'd be reasonable to say that there could be. Now, Alabama lost a couple of players in the transfer portal. Speaking of that, let's look at their roster. Um, they lost a couple of DBs. They lost their center from last year, which probably was a good thing because he was not good. They lost Isaiah Bond, who was the savior of the Iron Bowl last year. They just lost a couple of guys. But what they retained was their redshirt junior quarterback, Jalen Milroe. A good keep for Kalen DeBoer. Jalen Milroe, while not the best pure quarterback, he is a very good athlete. He's one of the best athletes in the country. He's like a Lamar Jackson if Lamar Jackson, when he bulked up, kept his speed. Jalen Milroe is just crazy good when running around, and he is probably one of the most pretty deep balls I've seen out of a quarterback in a long time. Uh, but he does have some downsides in his mid to short game. You saw last year he struggled at least early in the year and down the stretch, at least until the Georgia game, uh, in the short to medium range. You saw, especially in that Texas game, his interception he threw was on a short to medium throw. He can get antsy at times, wanting to run the football, but all in all, he is a really good asset to this team. And Kalen DeBoer, if he's able to utilize Jalen Milroe and improve his accuracy and his um, decision making, Alabama's going to be a problem, like they have been for the last couple of years. Behind him, you have Ty Simpson and Dylan Lonergan, who are fighting for that backup job, plus a transfer, Austin Mack, who came in from Washington following Kalen DeBoer. You'll see a trend, especially on the offensive side, of a bunch of players following Kalen DeBoer. Like almost half of Alabama's transfers were from Washington. So with that, you have a three-way race pretty much for that backup quarterback job. Austin Mack coming in from Washington, Ty Simpson, who's been the backup quarterback, and Dylan Lonergan, who's a redshirt freshman, who was redshirted last year. We'll see how it shakes out there. But whoever the quarterback is, which is going to be Jalen Milroe, but in the future is going to have help in the backfield. You have Jam Miller, Justice Haynes, and Richard Young, who are three really good running backs in the backfield. Jam Miller really put it all together near the end of last year. Justice Haynes was a freshman. He showed signs, but it was really Jace McClellan, Roy Dell Williams, and Jam Miller last year. Richard Young, he was redshirted. We'll see. He's got talent. We'll see how he plays in that rotation. Then you have two freshmen, Daniel Hill and Kevin Riley. Going to the wide receiver position, like I said, you lost Isaiah Bond and Jermaine Burton went to the draft, but you sort of rectified it with a good recruiting class and a transfer coming in Jeremy Bernard from Washington. Jeremy Bernard was the fourth wide receiver on Washington's team last year, but keep in mind they had Jalen McMillan, Roma Dunze, and Jalen Polk, who three all got drafted in the top 3 rounds, I believe, this past draft. So he was in good company. Besides him, Kendrick Law has been a good presence for Alabama and Kobe Prentice as well. They haven't been superstars like that wide receiver class that Alabama had a couple of years ago with Devontae Smith, Henry Ruggs, and Jerry Jeudy, but they've been serviceable. They've been able to make big plays, so I'm not worried about those two. Behind them, Emmanuel Henderson, who hasn't really seen a lot of playing time, Cole Adams, who was redshirted last year as a freshman, and Jaron Hamilton as well. Um, but another thing you're looking at is all of these freshmen: Caleb Odom, Bubba Hampton, Amari Jefferson, Rico Scott, and of course the crown jewel of this wide receiver class, Ryan Williams, 5-star. If he I'm not going to be surprised if he ends up getting into the starting rotation by a couple of weeks into the season. He's just that good as a freshman. But we'll see. Highly rated freshmen usually come in and they don't start immediately. So we'll see if he develops into a starter by the end of the season. Tight end CJ Dippre. He was behind Amari Niblack last year, who ended up transferring to Texas. We'll see if he can sort of put it together this year and make some big plays for Alabama. Robbie Oots mainly plays the fullback or blocking role. He's not really your receiving tight end. I mean, he can go out and play like a receiving fullback, but you're not going to see him going down a seam and catching a ball like, I don't know, an OJ Howard or Brock Bowers or um, anybody like that. Not even like a CJ Lizama. But he's a good blocking guy. Josh Cuevas, who also came over from Washington, is another guy. I'm not familiar really with his game. I don't know if he started for Washington last year. I'm sure he did because you didn't really see a lot or hear a lot of the Washington tight ends. You really just heard of like Dylan Johnson at running back and the three wide receivers and Michael Penix Jr., of course. So we'll see how he does. Then you also have like Danny Lewis and Ty Lockwood behind him. So your weaponry in Alabama, it's not like superstar talent like you've had in the past with like a Heisman Trophy winner or two very fast wide receivers in Jalen Waddle and Henry Ruggs, but it's serviceable and you can work with it. They got talent. It's just can you take advantage? The offensive line has been a problem for Alabama over the last couple of seasons, probably ever since 2020. They've played good at times, but it hasn't been consistent. I'd say your best offensive lineman at this point is Tyler Booker, the guard. You saw the guards last year against Georgia just bully that Georgia defensive line. Like Tyler Booker, I remember watching and seeing him pancake Nazir Stackhouse, which is Georgia's probably biggest defensive lineman. So he's a really good offensive weapon. Elijah Pritchard is going to be playing tackle with Caden Proctor who's going to be fighting for that tackle role, and then you also bring in Naquil Bertrand from Washington as well, or excuse me, Texas A&M. I'm just so used to seeing a bunch of these Washington transfers. He comes in from Texas A&M, your first non-Washington transfer, but don't worry, we'll get back to it. He's also going to be fighting for starting reps. He's a redshirt freshman, So there's no timetable for him to start, but I wouldn't be surprised if he maybe like works his way in, maybe at rotation at guard or the other tackle spot. But we'll see. At center, you got rid of your guy last year who was really bad, and you bring in Parker Brailsford from Washington, another Washington guy. Uh, he should be a significant upgrade for this offensive line, especially in snapping, because you can only go up from where you were. Rock Montgomery is a redshirt freshman who's behind him. I think you're going to see Brailsford, for the most part, starting this season, barring an injury. Hopefully, no injury. Um, at guard and right tackle, you're seeing redshirt junior Jaden Roberts. I believe, I don't know, I forget if he was the starting right guard last year or not. I know J.C. Latham was the right tackle. I don't remember about the right guard, though. Anyways, he should be good for Alabama if he can be consistent. The same with all the offensive linemen. Then you have a redshirt freshman projected to start at right tackle, either Wilkin Formby or Miles McVay. That's going to be probably a weak point for this offensive line is going to be the right tackle spot. You have a young guy starting there, and probably left tackle as well. The tackles are probably going to be the weak point, just because of them being young and inexperienced. But we'll see how Kalen DeBoer coaches them up. You also have a couple of freshmen, as well as like uh, Olas Alinen at backup right guard. You have some freshmen as well, like Joseph Inoda, Casey Poe, and William Sanders. So the offense, the only question mark I have for the offense is the offensive line. I don't have question about the talent of Jalen Milroe, nor do I do the running backs, nor do I do the wide receivers. It's just the offensive line. Is it going to be improved? We'll see. How's it going to be affected with Auburn? We'll see when we get to Auburn. Now, the defense, I have less questions about, especially the front seven. You have returning starters in Ja Marine Latham. I guess he's the brother of J.C. Latham, not sure. Tim Keenan, who's been a really good nose tackle for them, and Tim Smith, who's been a rotational guy until last year for this defensive line just because of how talented Alabama's D line has been. Behind them, Jaheim Otis, who saw some time last year, and then I believe that could be Deron Payne's brother, Damon Payne. Um, you got a lot of talent on this defensive line. You also bring in LT Overton from Texas A&M, who was a cornerstone of that defense from the 2021 recruiting class that was number one. So you got guys. You also have like Keon Keeley, who was a 5-star in last year's class. James Smith, Hunter Osborne, Jordan Renowned, Edric Hill, and some freshmen in Isaiah Vega, Jeremiah Beeman, and Steve Mbaumau, I guess is how you say it. I don't name these people, so I don't know. But your defensive line, that's going to be your strength of your defense, in my opinion. You got a lot of talent there. Even if the coaching is not the like as good as it has been with like Kevin Steele, and I mean even Pete Golden, but Pete Golden wasn't that good. You're still going to have a lot of talent in this defensive line and experience. The linebackers, same thing, same as the first. Quandarius Robinson, redshirt senior, Jihad Campbell Jr., and probably your best linebacker, Deontay Lawson, redshirt junior. He really showed out last year. Behind them, you have you have good depth pieces. Keanu Coate, redshirt junior, Justin Jefferson, the linebacker, senior, Jeremiah Alexander, redshirt sophomore, and then you have a lot of young depth. Quay Rousseau, uh, Yanze Pierre, and a bunch of freshmen. Jay Sean Ross, Justin Okronkwo, maybe a relative of Christian Okronkwo, or I don't remember his first name, but he's in the NFL now. Caden Jones and Sterling Dixon. You have a lot of great pieces on that front seven. That's not going to be a question for me. My question comes when you get to the secondary. Alabama lost a couple of guys from the secondary in this past transfer portal class, plus the draft, of course. Um, you have a lot of, you have a couple of guys that are returning. Like Malachi Moore, he's a graduate guy. He's going to be your safety, starting free safety. And Devontae Smith, the corner, He's a redshirt junior, but he hasn't seen a lot of playing time, so he doesn't have a lot of experience in games. Besides them returning, you just have Jalil Hurley and Bray Hubbard, who is a redshirt freshman and a sophomore at safety. So what did you do? You went and got some transfers, and neither of these guys are from Washington. Keon Sabat, safety, is coming over from Michigan. He saw a good bit of time last year for the Wolverines. He's a redshirt sophomore. He's going to be a good piece for this defensive secondary. And then Damani Jackson, a junior transfer, who was a big recruit coming out of high school, but he went to USC and didn't really show out well. Which, to be fair, none of that defense shows out well for Lincoln Riley. But if he doesn't show out well for Alabama, you may see some of these freshmen coming in get some starting reps in, like Xavier Mincy or Red Morgan, and then even like Dre Kirkpatrick Jr. And if you couldn't guess, that's former Alabama corner Dre Kirkpatrick's son, who's coming in to be the backup safety. Uh, I bet you can guess. My only question, also, Jalen Bakwi, another freshman that could see it, and Xavier Brown, who's projected to be a starter at corner. About missed that. So as you can see, probably tell, my question for Alabama's defense is the secondary, which that was my question for them last year. But the only problem was last year is they had, or the only good thing about last year is they had Kool-Aid McKinstry, Malachi Moore, freshman Caleb Downs, who ended up panning out before transferring to Ohio State. And you had like Terrion Arnold and people like that that were like that had some experience in that Alabama defense with Nick Saban. And it helped that Nick Saban was your head coach. Now you have an offensive guy in, and you brought in the head coach of South Alabama to be your defensive coordinator. That is concerning for me. I saw the spring game. I know it's a spring game, but the tackling was not there for Alabama. You don't usually see that, even in a spring game for Alabama, that the tackling is that bad. Um, and with a secondary that's this young, the front seven is going to help out a lot. But anytime that you get into a game with a high-powered offense, you got to hope that your defense gets to the quarterback, or it's going to be a long day for Alabama. Going to the special teams, James Burnip is back, and you also brought in a transfer kicker. So unlike Nick Saban, Kalen DeBoer decided instead of going to a walk-on route for a kicker to get a senior transfer from Miami of Ohio. So we'll see if the Alabama kicking woes continue under a new head coach. So there's Alabama. My only two question marks for them are defensive secondary and offensive line. So let's go over to Auburn and see what they have going. Well, Peyton Thorne's back. He was not a high point for Auburn last year. The two best games he played were against Georgia and Alabama, and even then, passing was not his strong suit. He was really a running threat, which was weird to see, especially from his time at Michigan State. And you had Robbie Ashford on the roster last year, so that was interesting. I guess it was to sort of surprise teams, which it did. Behind him, you have redshirt sophomore Holden Gurner and redshirt freshman Hank Brown, as well as a true freshman, Walker White, quarterback. But Hugh Freeze has already stated that Peyton Thorne is going to be the quarterback as long as he doesn't get hurt, at least for the start of the season. We'll see if there's a change, but I still have faith that Peyton Thorne can get back to what he was at Michigan State in 2021. It's just, can he get protection and can he slow it down and just play quarterback? Well, he has some help behind him that could help slow it down. Jarquez Hunter, senior, he's been a good running back for Auburn for the last 4 seasons, or 3 or 4 seasons. He's going to be a threat for them, as well as junior Damari Halston, who's been good, and Jamar Cobb, who I believe this past offseason was involved in a shooting. I hope he's getting better. Uh, I know he had like minor injuries. I just hope that everyone around him and his family, they're doing well since then, and I hope that he gets better. Um, so the running back room for Auburn is going to be good. Wide receiver, they've pretty much revamped this wide receiver room with 3 different transfers as well as a highly touted wide receiver. Let's start with the transfers. Keandre Lambert Smith, from Penn State. He was pretty much Penn State's number one option last year. I think he was a transfer before. I don't remember. No, he wasn't. It was a different guy I'm thinking of. But he was in a bad Penn State passing offense. He was really their one option that wasn't inconsistent, I want to say. He wasn't a superstar by any means, but he was consistent for Penn State. And Auburn getting them is a big get because of just the uh, disperse of wide receiver talent that they've had over the past couple of years. Uh, when Gus left, they had some. And they really didn't have a number one option last year. So this is good for them. They also got Robert Lewis, transfer, another redshirt senior coming in from Georgia State, another good depth piece, and a former quarterback, another transfer, Sam Jackson the fifth, a former quarterback turned wide receiver from Cal, who is coming in as another transfer. Who knows? He could start too. And then the crown jewel of Auburn's recruiting class, Cam Coleman, five-star freshman. Another thing in the spring game. I know it's a spring game, but we saw him in the spring game. He made he made so many good catches for Auburn. So he's going to be an impact player immediately. You also have guys like Camden Brown Jr. coming back, Caleb Burton III coming back, redshirt sophomore, and some more freshmen, Perry Thompson, Malcolm Simmons, and Bryce Kane for the Auburn Tigers. Tight end, you bring back Rivaldo Fairweather, who was decent for you last year. Wasn't a breakout guy by any means. You also have Luke Deal, redshirt senior, Brandon Frazier, Micah Riley, and sophomore transfer Rico Walker coming in from Maryland, who he was on a team that absolutely beat y'all last year. So we'll see if he can get into the lineup. So your offensive weaponry is really improved. It's all going to depend on the quarterback and the development of those transfer and freshman wide receivers for Auburn. The offensive line, you bring in a senior transfer at tackle and Percy Lewis from Mississippi State. You bring in a JUCO and Seth Wilfred, a sophomore from uh, from Snow College, a JUCO school, coming in to be depth for right tackle. You bring back Dylan Wade at redshirt senior, Jeremiah Wright at guard at redshirt senior as well, and your center Connor Liu, a sophomore. So, you also have Xavier Miller, a senior, at right tackle. So your offensive line, at least the starters, looks good. It was pretty decent last year, especially in the games against Georgia and Alabama. Run blocking, especially. Uh, Depth guys, you also have Tyler Johnson, redshirt freshman, Jaden Muskrat, redshirt senior, Tate Johnson, redshirt senior, is going to be fighting for that center role. EJ Harris, redshirt sophomore, and like I said, Seth Wilfred. Clay Wedden, redshirt freshman, Dylan Sita, redshirt freshman, Braden Joyner, redshirt freshman, and then a couple of freshmen as well, Dre Carter, freshman, and Fevor Edwin, another freshman at offensive line. The offensive line, I would say, honestly, this Auburn offensive line is at least a little bit better than last year's Alabama offensive line. At least the center isn't inconsistent at snapping, and the offensive line, like, you saw them break off some big runs, especially from the quarterback. And you didn't, I mean, you saw them get sacked, but that's just a talent difference for Auburn. But the offense, the question I have is the quarterback position and the development of that wide receiver position for Auburn. The offensive line, I don't really have a question on. It's going to be the talent level it's going to be at. The running backs, I have full faith in Jarquez Hunter. So the offense, there we have it there. Let's go to the defense and see what they're working with. Well, you're returning a couple of guys, and like Keldrick Falk, who's a freshman last year, uh, Zykevius Walker, redshirt senior, Jason Jones, redshirt senior, Darren Reed Jr., redshirt freshman, and Quintrell Jameson Travis, a redshirt junior. But you brought in some transfers to help bolster that defensive line. Trill Carter coming in from Texas really was a big get. Texas, since the first transfer portal window, they tried to fix their losses at defensive line, including Trill Carter, who's a redshirt senior from Texas. Trill Carter, that was a big get for Auburn. And they also got Gage Keys coming in from Kansas, another big get for them. They're both projected to start for this Auburn defensive line, so that's going to be a big help for the run stopping defense. They also brought in some freshmen, TJ Lindsey at defensive end and Malik Blockton at defensive tackle. At the linebacker position, it's a lot of returning guys. The main guys, Eugene Asante, who was really good for Auburn last year, Jalen McLeod, and Austin Keys, all three seniors, either redshirt or true seniors for Auburn. They also brought in a senior transfer, Dorian Mousey Jr. from Duke, and they also have Robert Woodyard Jr., redshirt sophomore. Other than that, the rest of the depth is freshmen for Auburn. Maris Williams, Demarcus Riddick, Jamonte Walker, DJ Barber, and Joe Phillips for the Tigers. Earlier this offseason, Hugh Freeze said that they're going to have to play a lot of freshmen this year, even though they really would rather not. But it's good experience for them, especially early in the year, to get onto the field. So we'll see how that pans out for Auburn. Going to the secondary, Kalen Lee, sophomore, projected starting at corner, as well as Keontae Scott, senior, start at the other corner spot. So Auburn lost two of their starting corners last year, and what was their names? DJ James, and I forget the other one's name. I know who it is, but I'm blanking right now. So we'll see how these two new corners start at least. At star, you have Champ Anthony, junior transfer, or junior, not transfer. He was transfer last year. And probably your captain of defense is Colby Wooden at free safety. You also have Sylvester Smith behind him, a redshirt freshman. Other corners, Tyler Scott, redshirt freshman. Terrence Love, sophomore. J.C. Hart, redshirt freshman. C.J. Johnson, redshirt freshman. Griffin Speaks, redshirt senior. And you also brought in some transfers. Jaron Thompson from Texas. He was a really good player on that Texas defense over the past couple of years, and he's going to be a good player for Auburn as well. Behind him, Laquan Robinson, a JUCO coming in from Holmes Community College, another depth piece. And then at the other corner spot, who's going to be fighting for starting reps, is Antonio Kite, a redshirt sophomore transfer from Alabama. One of those guys that played a little bit last year for the Crimson Tide, but ended up transferring after Nick Saban left, which I don't blame him. You committed for Nick Saban, so you decide, hey, he's not here anymore, I'm leaving. You brought in some freshmen as well in the secondary, Jay Crawford, Amon Lane Gaines, Caleb Harris, and Kinsley Lador Fotson. And the special teams, Oscar Chapman's back, Alex McPherson's back, and you also brought in freshman Towns McGoy. He looked good in the spring game. Once again, spring game, whatever. But he looked good. He had some good kicks in that game. I think he was like 5 for 5, 4 for 4 with a big kick. And then in the injury reserve, Brian Battie, who's another running back for them. It may have been Battie that was in that shooting, not Cobb. Or I don't know. I just know he also had something going on this offseason. Once he's healthy and back with the team, he's going to be a big piece of this Auburn offense as well. So, with that being said, also Jalen Hale, this guy for Alabama, wide receiver. So he's going to be a good depth piece for them as well. So, talking about the game, the Iron Bowl. So Alabama, before this game, they play Oklahoma in Norman. That's going to be a big game for Kalen DeBoer in his first year. Big game for him. And Auburn, before this game, they host Texas A&M. So this is going to be a game to where they're coming off two pretty decent matchups, and they're both offensive head coaches. Kalen DeBoer and Hugh Freeze, both offensive head coaches. It was sort of a mismatch last year with one of the best defensive coaches in the land against one of the most crafty offensive coaches in the land, and the offensive coach won. What are you going to get with two offensive coaches? Now, The questions I have, like I said, for Alabama is offensive line and defensive secondary. Auburn, my question marks for them are quarterback, uh, wide receiver, not depth, but progression. And on defense, it's also in the secondary with new starters and Kalen Lee and Keontae Scott and maybe even Antonio Kite. Um, but I'm not changing what I said originally, what I have originally in my predictions. I think Auburn wins this game. I think it's very similar to last year, to where Auburn, I get it's in Tuscaloosa, but still, it's a new head coach. Hugh Freeze, he's shown that he can win in Tuscaloosa at Ole Miss. Um, but we saw last year, the way I think it's going to play out, Auburn before the Iron Bowl, they lost at home to New Mexico State because they were getting ready to play Alabama, and they did. And they played their heart out in Hugh Freeze's first year, almost beating the Crimson Tide if it wasn't for that 4th and 31. Their gravedigger play from Jalen Milroe. It's going to be a tough game for both teams. Auburn's defense, I think, is good enough um, to stop Jalen Milroe, especially with Eugene Asante and Caleb Wooden being those veteran guys on defense. Uh, but I think what's going to happen is Auburn's going to lose at home to Texas A&M the week before, and they're going to come out in Tuscaloosa and really just stun Alabama. Uh, Kalen DeBoer is a good head coach, but I know this is outplayed, but he just has not played in a game like this. He's played the Washington-Oregon rivalry, it's a good rivalry. It's nothing compared to the Iron Bowl. You could have Auburn go 0 and 11, and that 12th game against Alabama, if they win it, they would say it's a good season. So that's what I think. I think Auburn beats Alabama in Tuscaloosa for the first time since 2010, and Hugh Freeze gets a signature win at um, his first signature win at Auburn. So there you have it. Thank you all so much for watching. I hope y'all enjoyed, and go Dogs.